The restaurant smelled of garlic and wine, but it couldn't mask the sting in my chest. My mother sat at the head of the table, wearing the same satisfied smirk she always had when the family gathered to watch me crumble. The candles flickered between us, casting long shadows across the faces, leaning in, waiting for the next jab. And then she said it, clear, sharp, deliberate. The best gift you could give me is to disappear. My name is Isabella, and I'm her daughter. It was her 52nd birthday, and the entire family had gathered, relatives from her side, my father's side, and people I barely recognized. Their eyes followed me as I placed my gift in front of her, a framed photograph from one of our rare family vacations. I had chosen it carefully, paired it with a handwritten card full of memories and kind words. She tore the paper slowly, glanced at the photo, skimmed the card, and set them down without so much as a thank you. Then came those words, sharp as glass. Laughter bubbled up from a few relatives who'd always been her silent cheerleaders. My aunt hid a smirk behind her wine glass. My cousin leaned back, shaking her head like she couldn't believe I'd shown up at all. I swallowed the heat rising in my throat. This wasn't new. She had been doing this my whole life, finding the perfect moment to cut me down in front of an audience. A graduation party, Christmas Eve, even the day I moved into my first apartment. She knew how to make cruelty look like casual conversation. I stared at the candle in front of me, watching the wax pool. I remembered the time she told me my promotion didn't count because it wasn't in a real career, or when she'd called me the family's disappointment in front of my uncle's friends. It was always the same pattern, the stage set, the audience ready, the line delivered with precision, and me, left holding the weight of it in silence. But as the laughter faded into the low hum of dinner conversation, I felt something shift. Not in her, not in them, in me. I didn't defend myself. I didn't explain. I just sat there, letting her words settle into the air like smoke. Because this time, I wasn't going to let her get the reaction she wanted. This time, I was already planning my exit. When I was a child, I thought love had rules, invisible ones. I thought if I followed them perfectly, kept my room spotless, brought home good grades, smiled when I was told, I'd earn the kind of affection I saw other kids getting from their parents. But in our house, love wasn't given freely. It was dangled like a prize and snatched away the second I fell short of whatever unspoken standard my mother had that day. Her words could cut deeper than any punishment. "Why do you always make that face in photos? You look awkward." "Natalie, now she's a natural. You could learn something from her." Natalie, my cousin, was the benchmark I was constantly measured against. She was prettier, smarter, thinner, more accomplished, or so I was told over and over. I remember one summer when I made the honor roll. I came home clutching the certificate like it was gold. My mother barely looked up from the laundry she was folding. "That's nice," she said. "But didn't Natalie get straight A's?" It didn't matter what I achieved. First place in a debate competition? She'd say, "The other kids must not have been very good." A promotion at my part-time job. "It's not like you're running the place." Even small victories, like learning to cook my favorite dish, were met with critiques. "Too much salt," she'd say, pushing the plate away. It wasn't just the words. It was the way she could drain the joy out of any moment, leaving me with the sinking feeling that I'd never be enough. So I stopped trying to earn her approval. At least that's what I told myself. I threw myself into school and work, finding satisfaction in the praise of teachers, bosses, and friends. But every compliment from someone else was followed by the quiet question in my mind. Would she care? The answer was always no. Even as an adult, the pattern never changed. When I landed my first serious job, I called her, excited. Her response? "It's a start, but you should be thinking about something bigger." When I bought my first car, she barely looked at it before pointing out a scratch near the door handle. Over time, I learned to keep my good news to myself. It was safer that way, protecting my achievements from her ability to tarnish them. but no matter how much distance I put between us, that shadow stayed with me. It followed me into every relationship, every friendship, every workplace. I was always half prepared for someone to turn, to decide I wasn't worth the effort. I know now that's what happens when the first person who's supposed to love you teaches you that love has to be earned and that you'll never quite deserve it. And sitting at that birthday dinner with her words still echoing in my head, I realized something. She hadn't just shaped my childhood. She had shaped the way I saw myself. The plates had been cleared, but the table was still full of wine glasses, half-finished desserts, and the sound of people using my life as conversation fodder. "So, Isabella," my aunt began, swirling her drink, "are you still single?" Her tone carried that sticky sweetness that made the question feel less like curiosity and more like judgment. Before I could answer, my cousin piped up. "Of course she is. She's too busy with that job of hers. What is it you do again?" I told them. I always told them. And as always, it was met with polite nods and a half-hidden smirk from my mother, as if my entire career was an amusing little hobby. "Well," my uncle chuckled, "at least you don't have kids to worry about, or a mortgage, or, any real responsibilities." That one stung. Not because it was true, because of the way he said it, as if my life wasn't worth the space it took up. My mother didn't say much during this part. She didn't need to. She sat back, sipping her wine, letting the others do the work. Every so often I caught her watching me, like she was waiting for the moment I'd break. Then from the far end of the table, someone, probably my sister's friend, laughed and said, "Hey, maybe we should make your mom's birthday wish come true. Get Isabella to vanish. Could be fun." The table erupted. My mother's lips curved into a satisfied smile. I sat very still. I'd learned over the years that the quieter I was, the more uncomfortable it made them. But inside, my thoughts were moving fast. They wanted me gone? Fine. I'd give them exactly what they asked for, but not the way they imagined. Not some tearful exit where they could say they'd finally gotten to me. If I left, it would be on my terms, quiet, clean, and irreversible. I looked around the table, at the people who had never celebrated a single one of my accomplishments, who had treated my existence like an inconvenience, and I realized something. They had been trying to erase me for years. They just didn't expect me to erase myself. So I smiled. Not the kind of smile that invites conversation, the kind that makes people wonder what you're thinking. And I kept it there, through the rest of dessert, through the small talk, through the hugs at the end of the night. I didn't say a word about the plan already forming in my head. Because the best part of disappearing isn't the leaving. It's knowing they won't notice what they've lost until it's too late. The first week after the birthday dinner, I went quiet. No calls, no texts. When my mother sent a group message about some distant cousin's engagement party, I didn't reply. Normally, I would have felt that familiar tug of obligation, but this time I simply put my phone face down and let the message sit there. At first, no one noticed. My absence was just another thing for them to joke about. My aunt sent a laughing emoji in the group chat saying, "Guess Isabella's already working on Mom's birthday wish." My cousin followed with a meme about disappearing acts. I read it once, deleted it, and didn't respond. By the second week, I'd stopped answering even the occasional one-on-one texts. I muted the group chat entirely. My phone went blissfully silent. I didn't even realize how much mental space they had occupied until that constant stream of passive-aggressive comments disappeared. I began making bigger moves. I transferred my lease to a colleague who was desperate for a new place. I didn't give a forwarding address. I packed my things quietly, just the essentials, and arranged for the rest to be put in storage. The day I left the city, I didn't tell a soul. I boarded a train, with a single suitcase and my laptop, watching the skyline shrink through the window. It felt like I was peeling away the last layer of something toxic I'd worn for too long. I found a small apartment in another city. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. The air felt different there, lighter. I built a new routine: morning walks, cooking for myself, meeting new people who had no idea who my family was or how they treated me. On social media, I went completely dark. No photos, no updates, no location tags. My accounts became ghost pages, untouched. Friends outside the family reached out now and then, but I was selective about who I responded to. My new life didn't need to be broadcasted. By the third month, the jokes had stopped. My sister texted me twice, both times short and stiff. "Where are you?" And "Mom's been asking about you." I didn't answer. Then came a message from my father. One line: "Your mother is worried." I stared at it for a long time, remembering the way he'd laughed at the dinner table. I closed the message without replying. Slowly, I could feel the shift. What started as something they could mock had turned into something they couldn't control. They had no access to me, no way to pull me back in, no chance to twist my absence into another punchline. And that was the point. I wasn't just gone from their table. I was gone from their reach. 6 months later, my mornings begin with the smell of fresh coffee and the sound of a quiet street outside my window. No family group chats buzzing at odd hours. No sharp-tongued messages disguised as concern. Just peace. I live in a small neighborhood now, the kind where the barista remembers your name and the neighbors smile when you pass. Here, I'm not someone's disappointment. I'm not the punchline at the dinner table. I'm simply Isabella, a person who exists without needing to prove her value to anyone. I've built a circle of people who celebrate small victories with me. When I land a new project, they cheer. When I cook a new recipe, they ask for seconds. There's no hidden critique in their voices, no comparison to anyone else. Their acceptance is untainted, and I didn't realize how much I needed that until I found it. Sometimes I catch myself wondering what's happening back home. I don't call, I don't ask, but every now and then a mutual acquaintance will let something slip. How my mother's birthday dinners are smaller now, how the atmosphere feels different. Apparently, there's always one empty chair at the table. They don't talk about me, not directly, but they all know why it's there. I imagine them remembering the night she told me to disappear, remembering how they laughed, and now realizing that I listened. Do they regret it? Maybe. Maybe not. It doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that my life is no longer defined by their approval, or lack of it. I don't carry the weight of their judgment on my shoulders. I don't wake up bracing for the next jab. I've learned that absence can be louder than any argument. My silence, my distance, is a mirror they can't turn away from. They see themselves in it, and maybe, just maybe, it makes them think about what they lost. But I don't need an apology. I don't need them to admit they were wrong. My peace is not conditional on their recognition. The girl who used to sit at that table, waiting for her mother's smile, is gone. In her place is someone who knows her own worth, who doesn't need to beg for love where there is none. And that, I think, is the best gift I could have ever given myself. Sometimes the strongest revenge isn't fire or fury. It's walking away so completely that your absence becomes the loudest thing in the room you left behind.